Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. I have a really cool guest with us today. Really cool guy. He's a really cool guy and a really cool guest. We're here with Saul Philcox-Littlefield. Saul moved to Nashville from the UK when he was 18. He went out on the road for approximately 4 years as a sideman for a few different major artists, including Jake Owen, Aaron Lewis. He's been working in town as a full-time session player and producer since 2013. He produced over 20 artist projects and has played on over 100 and probably 10 times that many songwriter demos, as well as contributing to a handful of commercial products and sample library material. He's a really busy guy, put it that way, because we've had a hard time hooking up, and so I appreciate the time here. He got his first credit this year on a #1 charting record with Luke Combs' This One's For You, which he played most of the electric guitar on. And he's played on records by Adam Sanders, Clay Walker, April Cry, Sam Grow, Tyler Fillmore, Ray Fulcher, Pat Waters, and many more. He's also played lead guitar on tour for Luke Bryan and Cole Swindell, and he's also played guitar with Dierks Bentley and Dustin Lynch. He recently played on Michael McDonald's new solo album that's set to be released this year, and he was mentored by Brent Mason. Wow, that's not a bad deal, being mentored by Brent Mason. In 2010, Saul joined Nashville Aces Tom Bukovac, Pat Buchanan, Jack Pearson, and Kenny Greenberg to perform with the legendary band Double Trouble for an exclusive one-off show commemorating the 20th anniversary of the death of Stevie Ray Vaughan, one of Saul's childhood heroes. He's an avid collector of guitars and gear, and he lives in East Nashville with his dog Dibs, who I just met. Man, thanks so much for your time.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Man, those are some big names there for a guy who's not even been in town like that long.
Yeah, I guess it just kind of happens. It's like a lot of those are kind of sort of, variety shows or guest performances and stuff like a lot of that live stuff, like it's just kind of the stuff that you put on the resume. So it's like it sounds like more than it is, and I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I have like played with all those people, like like you just kind of like forget about it. I mean, that's how it works, you could be playing a show and just someone cool and famous like shows up and does a guest spot, or like I was doing this thing like the other day, and like my buddy Adam was like, he's like, Mark Wills is going to come up and like sing like half, like, do like half a set with us. And I was like, cool. Like that rolls, like add that one to the list kind of thing. Like, but yeah, it's great.
So I don't believe it just happens. I believe it's like a lot of hard work there, but I appreciate your humility there, man. But I know it's a lot of hard work. You don't get to play on stage with Tom Bukovac and Kenny Greenberg like randomly. Like it's not like you're the only guy in town that night that's around that plays guitar in Nashville, man. So congratulations with all the hard work you're doing. Is definitely paying off. Hey, Saul, before we get into the call, I just want to ask you, on that show back in 2010, you were like 20 years old, no?
Yeah, I would have been 20.
Yeah, that must have been like a really, at the time, very memorable experience to participate in that SRV thing.
Yeah, no, it really was. It was kind of cool, and Chris and Tommy came to town, and it wasn't any kind of rehearsal or anything. Like I actually didn't get to play with Tom and Kenny. It was kind of each guy got up and did like 2 songs each with the band. Like that, like there wasn't a jam or anything at the end. It was just everyone kind of. I think I sort of went up there somewhere in the middle. I think I was like after Kenny and before Tom, which like sucks. You know what I mean? Like sandwich between those guys.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean that was awesome. Like Stevie was like probably the first like guitar icon. Like when I was a kid, the first guy that I really listened to, like. Just guitar. So yeah, that was really cool.
Was the radio stations you were listening to as a kid growing up in England very similar to the stations here by the time you were a kid?
Probably not. No, we didn't. I mean, they had like the pop radio and yeah, but the BBC, Radio 1 and Radio 2 is kind of a staple in England. Like there was always cool stuff, you know. It's like I'd always be like going to bed and taking my radio to bed with me and like staying up and listening to like the late shows and like they do lots of cool live sessions with, you know, different styles. Like there'd be a lot of rock on Radio 1 late night. Like then they'd do like an indie program, and yeah, it's just kind of, yeah, it's like, yeah, basically, yeah, just grew up on radio kind of thing. It's pretty similar to how it is now, but no country. Like I didn't even hear country music until like I was a lot older, which is strange, I guess. But that was what. But when I heard country was when I kind of decided that this is okay. Like this is something I can actually, you can make a living from this. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be about you taking a risk and trying to sort of make it as a band or whatever. Like it's the whole idea of like the Nashville infrastructure is kind of what made me realize like, okay, this is somewhere that I can actually, people make a living doing this like a regular job. Like, you know, it's like been like a plumber in a town, like something, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have work, and you like, or at least from what I'd heard about it, and it turns out, I mean, it's like Nashville is exactly what everyone said it would be. Like it's kind of, yeah, like that's how it is, and that's what I always tell people who've moved to town and kind of want to know what's up. And it's like a lot's changed, but there's always going to be work. Like there's always going to be gigs. It's might not be like the most desirable ones to start off with, and you know you might not be making big money, but it's just kind of like going back to, you know, what we were talking about earlier. Just you do one gig and then you do the next one, and then out of every 3 that you do, that you might meet like 1 or 2 other guys in the band who'll get your number and call you for something else. If it's, you know, you're on somebody's list. You might be like number 7 of guitar players on someone's list, and then all the 6 guys before you aren't available for a gig, so you end up getting it. That's what's cool about Nash. I don't think that it really exists in any other place. Yeah, you know, New York and LA maybe sort of, maybe not so much now. I don't know. I don't really know too much about what's going on elsewhere. I'm just it's a Nashville guy. Like it's always seemed to be the same, at least like since I've been here the last 10 years. Like there's always work for players. Yeah.
Well, it seems like in Nashville, everybody's very supportive of one another too, which is really cool. That's very cool. And I don't know if you'd see that in other areas or not. You grew up in Norfolk in the UK. What was it, once you heard all this stuff going on, was that like what prompted you to move? You just said, hey, once you realized that I could be I could play sessions and make a living doing this, that you just said, hey, I'm going to Nashville. Like, did you know anybody here, or like, you know, did you call anybody here, or like, how did that, because that's a bold move for a young guy.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, so it all kind of started about sort of right after I got out of high school, when I was 16, and in England they call it a sixth form college, which is your junior and senior year, but it's a separate qualification kind of thing. So so I was like sort of 16, 17 when I started realizing, like, you know, and about the idea of going on to like further education, college and university and stuff. I sort of realized at that point that wasn't really like an option, and I wasn't going to have anyone like take care of me or anything. I was like, I've got to, like, the music thing is it. Like, it just seems like this is just what I have to do. Like, I always kind of knew. And that was back in the age of MySpace, which I'm sure a lot of most guitar players like my age and older was like, that was it. Like, that was the shit when back in the day, like MySpace and the early days of YouTube, like before it was kind of like the big thing that it is now. There was just communities of guitar players, and just, you know, the MySpace page thing was great because you could just post little clips of tracks and the whole thing was geared up to where you spammed your stuff to everyone. So it was pretty contained, like online environment kind of thing. Like really, like you could, and I had probably 6 or 7 friends in Nashville who were MySpace friends. Like,
okay,
a couple guys that like played with Broadway guys that played downtown. I kept in touch with a couple singers. Just people who we'd spam each other's pages. Just be like, yeah, hey, I'm a guitar player, I'm a singer. Like, listen to my new tracks. Like, I just posted. Like, that was kind of what MySpace was all about. Like, someone would be like, hey man, this is really cool. Like, and you just get talking. We'd talk on like, AOL Messenger and Skype and stuff when that first started. And it was really, that was just like my first experience of how friendly and nice like Nashville is. Just like a lot of people were saying, hey, like, yeah, if you come to town, like hit me up, like I'll show you around, like, like come to my gig, like, like, let's at least hang out and like, get lunch, like get a beer or whatever. And that was pretty much it. Like it was probably started with 6 or 7 people, and then the first time I came, like I was here for like 2 weeks, and I did all that, like met up with all the people, and Brent was the one that was like took me to my first ever like studio session that I saw, like allowed me to tag along and watch him work on a demo session, and that he was already kind of sharing insider tips with just about guitars and recording and stuff. I was just picking up so much, like getting to like watch the dude that I was like, I like idolized, like, up until that point, like, like Brent's like everyone's guitar hero, really. Right. It's like, he's just kind of like the guy to watch. So it was extremely fortunate to be able to do that. But yeah, it's like that. Just from being here, like the first 2 weeks, like those 6 or 7 people that I knew turned into 20, so then when I was able to come back, it's like, it's really like it's the visa stuff was the only really big obstacle. You know what I mean? It's like if I'd have been a kid from somewhere in the States, like I would, it would have been probably even easier, you know what I mean? But I really I never had a problem with getting to know people, or like in that. I mean, I'm not that sociable, you know what I mean? Like I'm not the kind of guy that it's like I'm not comfortable sort of talking to strangers and stuff. I don't really like go introduce myself or anything like that. But it was sort of more wait for people to come to me, like in that regard. And that's like the one thing that I just never had a problem with in Nashville. And I think like most people will say the same thing, just be like, yeah, nobody was like unfriendly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
how did your parents react to you coming over? Are they supportive of it? Or they like?
No, not at all. Yeah, that was kind of a thing. When I came back from Nashville the first time after visiting, and I'd sort of already decided at that point, I was like, okay, I'm gonna move here and do this visa thing. Like I came back, and I dropped out of school, and it's like my mom was going through some health issues and stuff herself at the time, and ended up pretty ugly. She wasn't really keen on me going to Nashville, and kind of pretty much sort of evicted me from the house for a little while. And I had to go to London and like live for like 4 or 5 months while I was waiting for my visa stuff to come through. So yeah, they're pretty, but I think sort of understandably at that point, look, I mean, that's like not what you want to hear. Like you're like 18-year-old kid is not going to go to college and get any like further education. Instead, he's going to go and try and like make a career in music. You know what I mean? Like that's like
in another country.
Another country. Like that's like every nightmare. Like so, I get it. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
it's funny. Like I can laugh about it now because it all worked out. Like
so you guys are cool together now.
Yeah, I mean I'm not really in contact with my family. That's just sort of how it is. Like,
sure.
But yeah, but I don't feel like there's any like we'll laugh about it someday.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
good that you feel like that. What kind of music were you listening to mostly as a kid, growing up in the UK?
But it started up with like it was rock and punk and metal and hardcore and you know, I was going to like just a lot of punk shows when I was a kid, like, you know, loved like pop punk, just like that whole wave, like the 2007, you know, just like the Starting Line, like Brand New, Taking Back Sunday, you know, and then the metalcore thing kind of picked up, and like metal was huge in England, so I was like that, you know, that sort of 2008. 2006, 2007, 2008, like sort of scene wave. Like I loved all that stuff. That was kind of what really got that's really what sort of like turned my gears for music. Like, and you know, but then I was listening to other stuff for other reasons too. Like a lot of stuff I really like just as guitar music, like not like as like a band kind of thing. You know, it's just like, you know, like Stevie Ray and like, you know, the blues guys, like the Three Kings and all of that. Like, yeah, so I got a pretty good like exposure to everything, I'd say, for the most part. Just what with radio in England, and I don't think I was ever starved of like good music. Like, you know, even though I grew up like pretty remotely, like in a rural area, like. And there was just great local players, like, you know, all the guys that were local like guitar teachers in my home county were all like pretty like heavy hitter cats. Like they're guys that had done, you know, they were guys that had, you know, they had worked in London and done session work, and they'd toured with, you know, they'd done the touring thing, and that, you know, they were all, you know, older guys that were, you know, married and had families, and you know, and they were, you know, it made sense. Like they were making just as much money, you know, gigging locally and doing, you know, teaching lessons and doing cover gigs and stuff, which is actually what I ended up going on to do. I started doing that when I was like 16, 17, like while I was still in school. I was like, you know, I've got to make money from this like some way, and I like don't really want to flip burgers, so I started kind of like learning from those guys, and you know, I was going out and I was kind of on the scene. I was one of the guys that was doing cover gigs and stuff, just, you know, doing blues gigs for, you know, 50 pounds a weekend, like going, you know, it's going out and doing weddings and covers and stuff like that. So like that was kind of out of necessity. I didn't really love it, but I'm glad I did it. It's like kind of got the sort of bar playing experience out of the way early on, kind of thing. And then I was teaching lessons too, like, you know, to like young kids, like on a Saturday, like it was just local moms like in the town were coming, and you know, they wanted to go do their grocery shopping for an hour, like without their kid with them, so they drop off their like, you know, 11-year-old son at like my house, and we'd, you know, and I teach them AC/DC riffs and stuff, like just on a Saturday morning for, you know, like £20 an hour kind of thing. Like,
right.
Which, you know, is like great money with you when you're like 17. Like,
sure. Was this in London or in Norfolk?
This was in Norfolk, yeah.
Where is Norfolk? Is that like north?
It's like southeast, not like the very bottom corner.
Okay. So
it's the area is called East Anglia. It's like Norfolk and Suffolk. It's like if you were to go like directly northeast from London, about 120 miles kind of deal, you would like Norfolk is like the round little kind of, it's like the round like little like nubby part that like sticks out on the side of England. Yeah, it's okay. But other than that, there's not really any landmarks or like exports.
Sure.
So like there's not really anything to kind of put it on the map, but beautiful county though. It's like pretty low population. There's lots of fields and very flat, and yeah, everything
out there was rough. I thought it was really beautiful outside of the city, man. It was
the city is like it's
really pretty, and everybody's really like I don't know. It was like old world-ish in many ways, you know, in a good way. Like it was simpler, and like just people dropping. You know, like the first thing I thought of when you said that about your lessons is like, man, you wouldn't again, I'm from New York City, so my viewpoint is not like the rest of the country. But I'm like,
No,
the first thing I thought of is, man, it'd be a cold day in hell before I drop my kid off with the music teacher for an hour. Because it's just like, it's like a different mentality, but it's totally normal over there. You know, it
definitely is. Yeah. And it's especially like the further out, like the more rural you are, like in an area, the more common it is. I mean, it's no different to growing up somewhere out in the country.
No, it's exactly
out in the States. Really, it's the same. I mean, like that was like my childhood was just like me and my mates, just like, we'd just ride our bikes around, and each town was sort of, 2 or 3 miles away, like between the other, and you'd have 1 or 2 friends that lived in each town. You'd go bike to the next town and hang out with your friend. It was a very, very great place to grow up as a kid. You know what I mean? It's just not a pretty low ceiling as far as what you can do within the county. I mean, but there's great musicians there, man. It's like it's scattered. Like, you got to find them. Like, there's not like really like a music infrastructure there. Like I was saying, like not a bunch of studios or records being made or anything. But it's the same as anywhere else in the States. If you just got to kind of look deep enough, and you find like these serious cats, like great players, like. Yeah, guys like Ron Sayer, Graham McGrotty, it's like players that were just badasses, like really like, as good players as you'd get in Nashville kind of thing. But they were doing like the local thing, like, killing it, making great money, like doing weddings and local gigs and stuff, like more money than you make here doing cover gigs and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, because it was kind of a limited supply. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Like,
it's interesting.
Hard to describe Norfolk to people, but it's, I think anyone that's grown up anywhere sort of remote will sort of understand how it works, and the same. And
it's interesting. I had a client up in the north. What is that? What they call them, Geordies. Where is that?
Geordie, yeah.
Newcastle. Yeah. I had a client in my marketing business there many years ago, and he had a business throughout England, and he booked act, and they were called working man's clubs. Is that what the term is?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, he would book acts in working man's clubs all around, but not just musicians. He'd have like sort of like shows, and he had a really good business doing that. He'd been doing it a long time. He was in Newcastle. I remember that. Really good guy. Hey, what did you learn? Being mentored by Brent was probably a real good thing. What did you learn? What was the most valuable lesson you took from him, both in terms of succeeding in Nashville and in terms of actual playing, or technical or tone?
Okay, 2 things. As far as like, I mean, I've built my whole, just my mentality and my approach and my work ethic around Brents. Like that, he's who I learned it from. Like that was like the first, before we ever even talked guitar. These were the things that he was talking to me about just how, you always take a session, like no matter, unless it's some asshole who's gonna like fuck you, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like just whatever it is, always take like the work, like just always, like no matter what position you're in, like whether you're successful or nobody, like just always take the work. If you got a chance to go make money and play and do something, like just do it. Like it might suck, but like it's gonna, at least you're busy, you know what I mean? Just like I think that's a pretty common rule in town, but Brent always just seemed to adhere to it. You know what I mean? He would, getting to watch him work, he'd go and play like big, huge master sessions. He'd do like a half a week working on like an Alan Jackson record, and doing triples, doing like 12 hours a day recording. But then the next day, like as soon as that was over, he'd be like getting up and he'd be like, doing overdubs from home for some client in Germany or Sweden or something like that for like far less cash than what you had made like the previous 3 days. Like it was just a matter of just do it and stay busy and just, like even if you're sick, like even if you're like close to dying, like, you never call in like ill for a session, or like, you always show up, just like make sure you take everything that you can, because because it's really easy for, other people to come in and
oh yeah, man, phone call away.
And so, exactly. Like, so that side of it was just like the work ethic thing. Like that was probably the most important thing I think I learned from Brent. Like that's like and then musically, I think it was the thing that really, like, because I'd watched all the videos, and I listened to all, like, I had all the instrumental records, and all the classic songs and the solos and tracks and stuff that he'd played on, and so I'd heard everything he'd done, and it's like I'd always knew like what an amazing like player he was, like, but the one thing that really impressed me with Brent was like the layering, like the studio, like how to position tracks, like when you're, especially in a demo session, like when you only got 20 minutes or so to get all your guitar stuff done right, like just doing everything in real time, like just like tapping your delay and doing your, making sure that your left and right track like speak with each other, like they're written out parts that a band or a producer has like meticulously written in the studio, and just being able to like lay it down and then like lay out on the left pass so that the right pass can take the fills, and dialing in your pedals for your bridge section, like while you're like still on the second verse kind of thing, and then being able to just like real time like hit it when that section comes in, and like, and then already know what you're already hear in your head what your solo is going to sound like. Like, I think it's the whole idea of just I think the thing with Brent is just making sure that every single note and nuance that you play like has a point to it. Like, it's like the whole idea of it's guitar playing with a cause. And that's why Brent's like always my hero, because it's just like you never feel like anything he's playing is like unnecessary or like even when it's just ridiculous out like technical out like crazy shit, it doesn't feel like it's flashy or like, you know what I mean? Just like that, and that's the approach to a studio thing. It's just, never noodle, like don't play unless you've got like, unless the part that you're playing has a specific point to it. And then if you can, and there's just certain things tricks you have to do that make producers like fond of you, like, using your volume control and your like using like the volume pedal and your gain staging with your different drives and stuff, like using that to kind of to automate yourself while you're recording your track, so that the producer doesn't have to adjust gain on different parts and stuff like that. Like just having your sounds so that like when you kick in the the distortion for the chorus or whatever, that it's EQ'd and the gain staging and the volume and everything is where it's going to fit into the track as if it's already been mixed. So like they don't have to move faders and stuff like that. It's like, using your volume control to you cut your signal whenever there's a silent point, so they don't have to spend that extra 30 seconds or whatever, like cutting out the noise in between the parts and doing the crossfades and stuff like that, because everything happens so quickly here. Like that's what blew my mind. Like the first time ever going into a demo session and watching Brent and all those guys work, and they'll cut a song, like, and the first time they played through the song, it's like you're hearing it through the speakers in the control room, and what comes out of the speakers, like their first attempt at a song, sounds like a finished record. Like it sounds like it sounds like it's been mixed. Like all the tones are there, all the parts are there, like everything's pocketed. Like so, they never have to move a beat for a drummer to like. I never have to quantize or like do anything like that. Like you basically, like, and that's how the demo things work. You know what I mean? Like they do those demo days where they'll have 12, 15, sometimes 20, songwriters like coming in and just recording track after track, and you've got 20 to 25 minutes or whatever to work on each one, and as soon as it's done, they'll track a lead vocal for it the next day and maybe a harmony, but other than that, it's going to be finished and shipped out, like, because it's and it's got to sound as close to a record as possible, because usually the purpose of the demos is, they're pitching to the artist to try and get songs cut on major records, and so it's got to sound like as close to like a thing, like as a finished something, like, and you have to cater to that as like the studio player, like you just have to know like how to handle your noise and just where to place your parts, and you've got like five odd other musicians with you on the floor doing this while you're, you know what I mean? So it's just that, like, and it's funny, a lot of it doesn't even get discussed. Like it seems to be like there's like an unspoken language where when a guitar, when a song is doesn't require much electric guitar, and it's more the keyboard guy to kind of take the lead role in that particular song, or like, when as a drummer, you just know when to lay out and go for a brushes feel or something, instead of like rocking it out, and letting the acoustic guitars like take the space kind of thing. It's like there's not a lot of discussion goes on in the studio sessions. Like someone might say like, oh hey, like do you want to take like second verse fills? Like, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take like second half. Like, why don't you take first, and we'll just split it that way. And then that's all that will be said. Like, there's not a big discussion process. Usually the producers there's not time to waste kind of sitting down and be like, okay, like, here's the deal. This is what I want happening in this first section. And then like,
you sounded very American when you said that, man. Was that like a deliberate? You switched into your producer voice. That was very American.
That's hilarious.
It sounds like, if I could summarize it, it sounds like there's a few specific things that you learned from. Number one is the guy's got a tremendous sense of awareness.
Yeah, that's it. It's the awareness thing.
Yeah, that he's fully aware of all the moving parts, and he's skilled enough at his craft to master them and understand how they move together. The second thing that I got out of that was everything he does is deliberate. Nothing randomly happens because of that level of awareness.
Exactly. Like there's, like, I put it this way, like Brent's one of those guys where no one ever mutes his track. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like you'll go in and you'll do a guitar pass, and then a keyboard player is going down again. So you're like, okay, let me add like a second guitar, like it might be an option, you might be, you tell the guy, yeah, you might be able to kind of like make a mix between this one and the first one kind of thing. Like, I'm just going to try out a few ideas. And you do it and it doesn't really work and it sucks. And they, it's like, all right, never mind. Just keep that muted. Like, the producer will say like, yeah, like that sounds great. And then they'll mute it later and not use it or replace it with something else. Like Brent's like one of those guys that just never happens to him. Like his parts are like the ones that drive like the ship, you know what I mean? It's like, and people don't realize that, like, they should, but his pop playing is like pretty revolutionary. Like he was the one that was doing all the shit that everyone's doing now. Like he was one of the first guys that was doing like the dotted eighth delays and like the those more polished like pops, like all the Shania Twain records and stuff. Like the stuff, like the guitar work on that was like, that's what was revolutionary. Like that's what started like the Keith Urban approach of of less twang, like more kind of more grit and more sort of interesting tones and more sort of modern sounds.
The shift from old country to new country.
Yeah. Dan Huff obviously had a huge part to do with that, and Brent Rowan, and there was a ton of guys like doing that back in the day. But Brent, like to this day, is like still one of my favorite pop players. Like, you know, for something that's like a modern pop type thing that you wouldn't like. Yeah, like which is, I was never really a pop music guy like growing up, so I didn't really know a lot of it, but that's something I really picked up from Brent for sure. Like, yeah, and other guys too, but like, yeah, like the first time ever getting to see him kind of really use his full like arsenal of styles and approaches, it was just mind blowing. It was like, wow, like this is what everyone should aspire to, you know, just like being able to do everything and anything and it all sound good and all like fit the track. Like it's a beautiful art. Like I've been obsessed with the idea of session players like just since I can remember. There's something about it that I love. Like it's organic, but it's also it's conservative at the same time. Like it's a very conservative and efficient form of like creativity.
Well,
you know
also,
what I mean? Like
you have to have
thing of like, you know, bands like disappearing up their own asses and like spending days in the studio just like, you know, dicking around trying to like, you know, just being all self-important about like a particular thing. Like I'm like, no, like let's get this done. Like it's like save money, you know, like we all got other like places to be kind of thing. I think that's like the session player approach. Like that's like all the best guys seem to just like, they're just like pros, you know what I mean? Like come off of one record and then go into a different studio that same day and do a completely different session of a different style, like a different approach, and be able to just seamlessly transition into that and do it convincingly, like with you know, with like I said, with soul and with purpose and with, yeah, like that's, I love it. Like that's just, there's something about that. It's just, I still get a kick out of it every time I do it.
Well, it's just very efficient. So, like, if I had to, I would say awareness, deliberate actions, and then the third thing I'd have to say is he's got a lot of arrows in his quiver to pull out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think those are great lessons. When you touched on this earlier, but I'd like to get a little more specific. How did you and how are you creating or finding opportunities now that are allowing you to transition more from touring to session and production work?
Well, honestly, the production work is more, I tend to do more of it in like the fall and the winter time, just because that seems to be when gigs and sessions and stuff kind of, there's a little bit of the workflow kind of slows down a little bit. And with production nowadays, it's more just if someone just comes to me and like, I don't really promote myself as a producer because I don't want to do it full time. It's a little bit soul destroying sometimes, you know what I mean? Just relentlessly.
In what way? That's pretty powerful.
Because it's kind of like the opposite of the session thing. Like when you're doing sessions, you're just going in and you play and you're done, and you're never, you know, you might not ever even hear the final product. Like, but when you're producing, it's just the hours of like, you know, it's like the same as doing any job where you're working from home. And you know, if you're doing some job any job where you're on a computer doing data, it's basically like data entry or like.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Because there's just so many things that you have to do with the editing and the sounds, and you're just hearing the same songs over and over again. And then the responsibility is on you to kind of get everything done. So you really have to kind of invest it. Like you can't really treat it like doing a session thing. Like, oh, sweet. Like I'm going to go like record for like 4 hours and then like come home and drink margaritas. Like you can't like, yeah, the production, like if you're really, you know, trying to put your heart into it and make it good, you kind of have to commit to it full time. It's like you really have to invest your time into a record. And then if you can't afford to invest your time in the record and go full on with it, then it's like, then it feels a little soulless because you know, you just feel like you're just phoning it in. It's like you feel like you're just kind of you're an assembly line.
Yeah, you're a cog in the wheel.
But yeah, you're a cog in the wheel, exactly.
I totally
like
get that.
So yeah, so production wise, like I let that sort of subsidize my work, and just whenever it, you know, I've been able to work on some great projects and recent years, and in the middle of doing a couple now that I'm really excited about. But that's just things that I sort of came across, and it was just more like I said earlier, it was just more sort of organic meetings, just running into guys or a friend of someone that I'd recorded with before, but maybe like just like referenced me and like threw me my number, and so that's like how that works. And then the producer thing, like honestly, like or not the producer, the session player thing rather. Man, I probably have maybe 15 or 20 producers that will call me for stuff. And some of those, maybe 5 of those, it's like I'm like their first call guy. Like, whenever then that's what you want. Like that's
so you
like,
so you have 5 guys that you're the first call, or that's pretty darn good. I mean, it's not like there's a shortage of session guys there.
I mean, obviously, who am I to say if I'm first call? You know what I mean? Like it's.
No, I get you.
You might not always be kind of thing, but you've got that relationship where you've worked on records before that have like had some success, and it's proven to be a good formula. So, and those are the guys where it's like I'll be like leader on the session floor. Like I'll be like the guy. Like I'll make the charts and kind of put the band together too, and call people if I need to. Like be more sort of actively involved. And then there's like the 5, 7, or 8 or whatever guys where kind of like I was saying earlier, it's like I might be on the list kind of thing. I might be, fourth or fifth or sixth or whatever on the list. And, just whenever they can't get the guys that they want, like I'm the guy that'll come in and get the job done kind of thing. And then there's a few, and then the rest of them are just kind of people that that I'll do something with for like 1 year or, and then there's a few guys that I work for where I do all my stuff exclusively online, where like they're guys that they either live out of state or they're track guys that don't record. They only do producing at their like they only have a production studio. Mm-hmm. They don't actually like want to record live instruments. Like that's kind of a new thing too. The track building thing. A lot of demos and records too are getting built that way, kind of like more in a pop like electronic, I guess, digital sort of approach of like building everything in the box first and then adding the real instruments and stuff later. Like, so there's a handful of guys like that that'll send me stuff once a week. Like I probably usually play them, probably at least 6 or 7 songs like a week, probably just which is stuff that people send me. Like occasionally it might be a jingle or something, but it's usually like songwriter demos. And then really, like, honestly, like each year I'll get a handful of new guys. Like,
hold on. When you talk about, that's what I was going to ask. So they find out about you through the existing guys or through other musicians, or, they'll be in there with a drummer and they'll say, "Oh, I play with this guy Saul in this other session. Check him."
Exactly.
Okay. So okay. How did you get hooked up with? Because that was pretty good. You got on Luke Combs' #1. This one's for you. So how did that come about? Because that's a pretty good deal now.
That was my good friend Scott Moffat, who was he was in a band that had some success in Canada, and he's been coming to Nashville and producing stuff now. He came to a studio to record one of the first things he did when he came to Nashville, which was it was an independent country record. And he, I guess he didn't like know like the full studio band that he was going to use for the thing. So he just asked the engineer and the owner of the studio who he should use. And then I got called in because I'd been working at that studio for several years prior and was kind of like the house guy there for, just demos and putting together, and it was kind of like one of those things where I'd had a good relationship with the studio because I'd brought in my own projects there and kind of gotten them business. And like, that's really just how it works all the time. Like gigs and sessions are kind of like currency in that sense. Like, sure. Like if you get your buddy like hooked up with a session or something, it's sort of considered like, it's considered sort of fair game to kind of get him back. Like,
yeah, that's business, man.
Throw his name in. Like next time it comes up, it's really just simple business in that way. It works exactly like that. So I worked with Scotty and we did a couple projects together. He'd come down from Canada and we'd do these records and then one time he came down and he was like, yeah, we're doing this Luke Combs record. And it was before Luke had gotten a record deal at that point. He was, I kind of knew, I'd heard of him and I knew who he was, but he wasn't big. He was just kind of like a new, younger guy that he'd come to town fairly recently, I think at that point, maybe a few years or so. And he'd had a lot of buzz around him, and, you know, had like a independent single that had done pretty well on sort of, you know, satellite radio kind of deal. Like, and, you know, it was an independent session. We just kind of went in one afternoon and cut like the whole record. I did a few overdubs from home, and that was that. It was done very much sort of in a pretty traditional sense. And then we heard later, a few months later, that Luke had got his record deal, and we were all bummed out because we're like, oh no, like they're going to re-record the record, like, you know, because why?
Oh, that happens.
That happens all the time. It's like, yeah, you know, like why wouldn't they like choose to, you know, he just got a major label deal, like why wouldn't they like put him with a, you know, the hottest producer and like, you know, do like a full budget, like, because, you know, it happens all the time.
Sure.
But I guess for whatever reason, it worked out, and the label liked the record that we'd all done together, the one that Scott had produced, and they just decided to put it out and release it at his debut, and that was one of the best days of my life. Like I was so
awesome.
You know, and I got an upgrade too on the sessions because they were independent when we tracked them, but obviously, like with the way the union works and stuff, if something gets like on a major deal, you have to upgrade those sessions to masters and stuff. So
awesome.
So the band all made a little bit of extra money, and the record went out, and everyone, and right since the guy's like blown up and he's like become like a really big thing, everyone was saying like, oh, that record's gonna be huge. You know, it's probably gonna go #1. Like I was like, yeah, you know, like don't want to assume anything, and then it did, and it was like fuck
me. Imagine that.
Like, that's really cool. Like, you know, hopefully it's.
So you get to play on the next record, do you think?
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, those are the sort of things that you're just not really privy to when you're a session player. You can't really call up and ask those questions like, hey, like when you're doing the next record, like it's just really like not your place to.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's
totally
like,
get it. Yeah.
It's just sort of like if it happens, like it'll happen when it happens, and then if it doesn't, I'm sure there's a good reason for it, and you just kind of have to let that slide. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. But it's like, but you're always thinking about the next one. Like it's like I completely did that when as soon as I heard that news, like, and it was like #1, like my brain just instantly went to like, all right, like let's get the next one. Like,
of course,
like that's
yeah,
the first,
man, of course.
One record out of the way,
I think that's pretty normal.
Like I want the wall at my house to look like Brents, like when you know just fucking plaques everywhere and like.
Yeah, why not?
You know, that's the dream. Oh, my dog's barking.
And you don't have to talk numbers. When they upgrade you like that, how much more, like percentage-wise, do they pay? Are they required to pay per union scale?
It depends what it is. I always forget what the exact numbers are for like the union master session. I think it's something like 600 or 700 for each one. Like I can't remember. Like everyone in the band made different amounts because I did pretty good from it because I overdubbed, and that's a whole different scale. Like when you overdub, you actually get paid as an engineer too because you're
that's awesome.
Because you're running you're pressing, you're hitting record like from your own studio. So we all made it like I just considered it kind of like my yearly bonus package. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Sweet, you know, it's like nothing crazy money, but you know, like here's just
but when it's not expected, man, it always feels good.
I didn't have like before. Yeah, exactly. It's unexpected. It's like it's mailbox.
Feels better. Yeah,
that's what they call it. Like
mailbox when it's.
If you get anything that's like on sync or anything that's like licensed or anything like that, like you know, like I still get tiny little random royalty checks and stuff from just instructional material or like loop library stuff that I did like years back with this little projects products rather that just are for sale somewhere, and then for each one I get like $1 or something like that. So like Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you'll get a few of those. I can like, oh sweet, like a $7.64 check like for this thing, like, and it's cool. It's like, wow, that's like a pack of cigarettes, and I totally forgot that I ever even did that thing like 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's very cool.
That's kind of, you know, the bigger stuff you're doing, you know, and if you're, I'm not all about the getting producer credits on records and stuff like that. I'm more of just kind of like a flat fee kind of thing. Like, I don't really have that much interest in sort of working my way into deals in that regard. Like, it just, at least just like the age that I am and the stage of my career that I'm at. But that's sort of something that happens eventually, you know, if you're producing a lot and you're getting points and stuff on records, and you can like live off your mail. But you know, like that's what's going to like buy you that like big, nice house. And like,
yeah, for sure. Man. Well, it sounds like you're just right now really comfortable and happy embracing the, you know, the session players ethos, if that's the word you want to use. So, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be here and be doing it. Like at this point, you know what I mean? Like that's just, I'm still just trying not to overthink it. Like try not to work myself too hard as well. It's like it's easy to kind of overextend yourself, especially if you like set your ambitions really high and like go, you know, try and be like, okay, every week I'm going to do this, and this. Like, I just kind of at this stage was kind of like letting things like happen naturally, just because I feel like I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to get in this position. And it's like it's taken time, and it's a formula that I don't really want to screw with. Like it's just that's that sort of approach of just kind of being, I wouldn't say lackadaisical about it, but
no, I don't think it's lackadaisical. I think you're just letting things happen organically. You're working your ass off on your end. You're saying yes to all the things, and then I mean, what else can you do, right? I mean, like,
exactly.
What else is there? Like you said, you could sit and overthink it to death, but you're getting paid, you're living, and hey, the whole key thing is, to me as an outsider anyway, it seems like what you said. Every year I add a few more of those guys to my staple. That's your measure of progress, man. If you're getting more calls every year, then whatever you're doing is working. If you're suddenly getting less, that's where it's a freaking problem.
Exactly. Like, and that's, and you know, just going back to the road thing, that's sort of what you got to be careful about if you're doing too much live stuff and playing on the road, is like, you will start getting less calls. It's not because you've done anything wrong or like someone doesn't like you. It's just, it's easy to kind of get out of the picture. And so I guess it's easier nowadays to kind of remind people that you're in town. It's just like social media and stuff. Like that's sort of the classic thing. It's like if you're in the studio, like you always got to post an Instagram picture. Like,
right.
It's got like the studio, like the face brag, like it's like the humble brag of sort of like, hey, like look at me, like I'm working, like I'm in the studio, like
yeah. Well, I get it.
Yesterday, but it's like you sort of have to really to like let people know that you're active. You know what I mean? Because you'll get replaced if you don't.
It's relevancy, man. You have to be relevant. I know you're a bit of a gearhead. What's your current go-to guitar?
Man, there's probably a few. Probably like the three is. I got this Strat that I've been playing a lot. Like the last year or so, I've been going back to the Strat thing, just kind of getting real back into, you know, Stevie Ray and Knopfler and Hendrix and all that stuff. So I've been playing this Revelator Strat, like this killer guitar, small guitar company that I'm buds with, that make like really good like vintage style like Fender like copies, models, whatever, like. So I got this black Strat that I love. That sees a lot of action. I got a 335 that I love.
Tell me about that, because I'm looking to get a 335.
Oh, it's actually a 355, because it was like the stereo model that had the little
tone variant.
Yeah, the little 5-way like rotary switch. That's a 1970. I bought that earlier this year. It's like I've had a lot of 335s. Like I've always wanted like the perfect one. So it's like I've always picked them up and traded for them when they've come up. And I've had a few of them, different ones, like a couple from the 70s. And one or two more modern ones, but I've never found the one that I really bonded with. So it was always the one thing that I let go if I was buying something else or trading.
Right.
But then this one, I found it in Chicago Music Exchange like early this year, and I just emptied my bank and I bought it outright because I knew that I was like, okay, this is the one that I'm not gonna ever trade or sell. Like,
right. And you've been happy with it since?
Oh yeah, just throw with it like that. I got a Gretsch that I really like, one of the modern Tennessee Rose. It's just cool. Like it's a great studio vibey thing because you kind of have to play more dumb on a Gretsch, like with the Bigsby and the small frets and the thin.
What do you mean more dumb?
You can't really shred as much on a Gretsch, and it's got the bridge isn't fixed or anything, so you can't hammer it because you'll slide the bridge around and it'll go out of tune. Like it's easy to kind of put them out of tune. You have to play in a certain
very gentle.
Gentle and more stripped down, and it's vibey. You know what I mean? Like that's like the guitar. If you're playing clean and just doing this single note, like just like that pretty the Buddy Miller or Chris Isaac, like that kind of sound, like where you're just trying to get the most out of your clean notes. Like it's just like instant vibe, you know what I mean? And you can't really overplay on a Gretsch. Like that's kind of what I like. It's like the nature of the guitar forces you to not overplay because you can't. That I got an awesome 73 telly that is the exact same setup as Brent's. That's like my studio telly. It's kind of heavy. I don't play it live, but he's got like
he's got a humbucker, I think, does he?
Yeah. The one I got, same deal. It's got the mini humbucker in the neck. It's got the middle pickup with a blend control. Like I bought it off a buddy of mine. Like it's killer. Like I've played Brent's before, and the neck on his 68 is kind of similar to this one. That's why I really liked it. That's kind of like the go-to like studio telly, like versatile. Like I got a couple other things. Like I got SG Junior that I like. Fender Mustang is also cool. I got this cheap modern brand new Dan Electro baritone, which is just I've been playing on everything. Like that thing's a monster. It's a couple other just random tellies and a few hollow bodies, and so I was kind of looking around what I got down at the studio here. Like this is kind of all my B stock, like my backups and spares. Like I keep most of my studio rig up at the house, like kind of usually in storage, just because I'm like grabbing it and taking it and stuff. Like
go ahead. Sorry.
No. What you said?
I would say, is there any like really cool story about how you acquired any of those guitars?
Man, there is. Yeah, like a lot of them is. I'm trying to get this one like really good. A lot of them I've bought on the road, like when I've been out doing gigs and tours, or like I've been out on a 2-week or month-long tour or something, and that's literally because, you go to music stores when you're on the road because you're bored and you just want to see. And also that's like the only time where I'm ever going to have like several thousands of dollars like in my bank account like at one time. Like it's like because like
I wouldn't say that's the only time. I think you got a long career ahead of you, man. I think you'll have a couple of bucks here and there.
But just when you're just because you're like a child when you're out on the road, you don't really have any responsibility. Sure. Your bills, your food and your accommodation, everything's like taken care of, kind of deal. You're not even paying for a car or gas or anything. So it's like, it's more like
it feels like everything is free.
Yes, you're like it's like the way I see it. It's like, this paycheck I just got is literally like it's mine, and I didn't have to spend it like instantly on something else, kind of deal. Like so, it's like I'll be like a lot of the older guitar, like that 335, my SG, like were just ones that I got from randomly walking into music stores like while I was on the road on like a day off or something, and just being irresponsible and being just like, you know what, I'm gonna buy this, like I'm gonna spend my tour pay like on this guitar, like kind of deal. I'm trying to think if there's anything that like really got. Well, the 335 the 355's got a cool story to it. Like, it's like I bought it in Chicago, and I guess it used to belong to this old like Chicago blues guy that was like, he had one arm. Like he was like an old black like Chicago blues guy, and I think he must have died or something. Like he was in his 80s, but he was like a street performer, like pretty kind of notorious, like, you know, like old school like Chicago blues guy. Like, and he had one arm. Like he only played with his fretting hand. Like
that is weird.
And played blues. Like,
yeah,
it was really cool. S.J. Hall, I think was his name is. Like this stuff. There's a few clips of him on YouTube. But anyway, this was his guitar. I imagine probably his. I think he passed away, and like his family, or whatever. You know, just kind of liquidated his gear, taking it to Chicago Music Exchange to sell. And I walked in and like saw this guitar and fell in love with it. And like as I was like checking out and paying for it, like the guy was like, "Man, there's actually a pretty cool story behind this guitar. Like, let me forward you like the email like with the info that we got." So
that's really
I got a kick out of that. It's not the best story, but I thought it was pretty fun. Like,
yeah,
it's
that
pretty
is cool. That's definitely cool. I'm gonna look that guy up. I wrote his name down.
I got a couple other guitars which I got from people who I'd done produce records for, songwriters or artists or something, and they didn't have the they didn't have like a lot of cash to pay me, so they were just like, hey, how about I give you this guitar, and in lieu of like the studio time or
sure.
producing, like that kind of thing. Like that's always cool.
You know what's interesting? I've never heard anybody that's a professional in Nashville anyway say, "Oh, well, I got this really cool Ibanez." It's like it's either it's the primary brands. It's although I'm sure Ibanez is probably a bigger seller than Gretsch, but you never hear like some of these. I play this Kramer, I play this Charvel. It's just and of course those are more metal guitars, but
maybe not like. But man, there's some novelty ones. Like I got this fucking thing here. This Spirit like 335 copy. This is a $200 guitar.
Mm-hmm.
This was one where I did produced a demo for a singer-songwriter and I liked the guitar. I was like, "Man, that like 335 copy you got's really cool." Like, they're like, "Yeah, it's like worth like $100." I was like, "Oh, do you want to just give me this?" Like, for me, like mixing the track or whatever. Like,
right.
Like sure, it's got some upgraded pickups in it, but it's literally a $200. Like you can get them on eBay. They do like a whole range. Like it's straight from the Far East, mass produced. Like, but for some reason it plays and sounds awesome. Like, and like I keep that like down here in my little studio for like I've tracked like so like it's a great lead tone. I've used it on lead tracks for overdub sessions and stuff. I've gigged with it a few times. Like there's a few little random pieces you get. Like there's guys in town that are like session players that are known for using like a certain just some random off-brand guitar that they decided they really like. Like I don't have a proper Gibson Les Paul. Like I have one of those Tokai. One of those. These like before they got sued, I guess, like by Gibson.
Yeah.
Like they were just straight ripping off the Gibson designs, and it's not even like a real Les Paul. I don't think it even has like a proper like mahogany body or anything. But it plays good. It sounds good. I just upgraded the pickups and stuff, and that's a $450 guitar. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But that's my Les Paul. If I need a Les Paul sound for something, then I just use that.
Very cool. Hey, let me ask you some personal questions. Any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Literally none. I don't.
I like that. Literally none.
Yeah, absolutely none. I'm a very one-dimensional.
You don't have time. I wouldn't expect a lot of time.
I don't have time, and all of my money goes into instruments and gear and stuff. So like there wouldn't be a point to me having an interest in cars or like any extreme sports or anything like that. Like I follow the European like football, soccer leagues and stuff. that's sort of, yeah, like that's what I do at the end of a long day. It's like watch soccer videos and listen to podcasts and stuff. But yeah, other than that, I pretty much don't do anything else.
You've been all over the world, man. Is there a favorite place you've been?
Man, honestly, I haven't. I've only really spent time here and in England. Like, been to Europe a couple times, like just like France and Germany, like, you know, on kind of school trips and odd weekends and stuff. But yeah, I've never actually been anywhere else. Like, I'd love to go to Asia, obviously. I think Japan would be really cool. Canada, I'd love to go to as well. Never been there. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure at some point I'd like get to do some touring. Like, that's one thing I've never done. It's like a proper real world tour, like Spinal Tap style.
Yeah,
like, I think that would be super cool. Like,
Spinal Tap style.
like fun shows like in like Brazil or something, like, and then go to like Asia. So like that would be cool. Like,
that would be cool, man. I'm sure it's gonna happen. Hey,
yeah.
Who's had the biggest influence on your life so far?
Man, I'm trying to think. Probably just like collectively, like every player that I've ever like worked with or kind of looked up to. Like, I'd say probably directly would be Brent, like, just because he was like he was the reason I got into, you know, studio playing and wanting to come to Nashville, and he was the first guy to help me out. Like, probably individually Brent, like, but there's so many more others like him as well that have been influential just in similar ways. Just, yeah, it's like getting to like work with people and play with people and stuff. Like, that's, yeah, like shout out to like everyone, really.
There you go. Hey, I got one last question for you, Saul. It's a tough one. What's your definition of happiness?
I don't know if there is one, to be honest. I mean, other than just being happy, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't think there's really like a formula. I mean, you can have everything that is supposed to be good and stuff, and you can still not be happy. Like, I don't know, I believe in the balance. Like, I think it's like, that's not to go too into it too much, but I think like that's in the Western world. I think there's far too big a stigma against like sadness and you know, depression and stuff, and you know, a lot of people like are all about getting medicated and you know, just this whole idea of just like you have to have certain things and be at a certain level and be doing what, you know, to have like self-fulfillment and stuff. Like, I think it's okay, and it's like it's natural to be like sad and like just miserable sometimes, you know. It's you kind of need it. Like, I think it's like, you know, it's like I'll still have like months and weeks and stuff where it's like I have to like go back to the old, you know, just like checks won't come in for gigs or something, and I have to pay a bunch of bills, and I'm just like flat broke for like 2 weeks straight again, just like having to not leave the house and just like scrape together like coins for like cigarettes and shit, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and that's like pretty shitty, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of like brings you back, like, and you're like, oh, like this sucks, you know, I was hoping I'd never have to do this again. But then you do it and you're like, oh, like, that's actually pretty cool. Like, you know, it's like I can prove that I can still do it, like still survive. And then it just makes it even like more better when something good does come along and you're pulled out of makes you appreciate the paycheck more when it does finally arrive, and you can like not have to live like a scrub anymore. Like,
well, I agree with you. I one of the things I kind of understand and identify with a little bit, I think social media has prohibited anything but life is fucking wonderful as a message. And there's actually, you know, and I heard
an exaggerated version of like what their life is.
It's not an exaggerated, it's a fucking complete lie.
Yeah.
Exaggerated means there's some truth to it, but I mean, there's actually I heard a whole podcast on NPR about there's like a legit a depression code for people that have are suffering because, you know, their perception of their contemporaries' lives, it's like, oh man, they're really happy, they're married, they're always doing anything. And they did this study, and with 100% accuracy, everybody who is like, you know, fucking over the top with, you know, everything's wonderful and, you know, my husband's great and my wife's great and, oh, I'm so happy, you know, and they like, look, I've been with my wife 25 years. I love her dearly and she means more to me than the world. But like when I hear people say like, we never argue, I'm like, well, fuck, that's not a world I've experienced.
That's scary.
How the fuck do
world I would want to experience even, you know what I mean?
No, like how do you get, like, how do you grow? It's like, or how do you develop a relationship?
I mean, there's whole, that's like a legitimate part of psychology science, like doctors and stuff like now, where there's whole departments of people that like exclusively just like exactly what you said. It's like depression and stuff coming from social media and like that's how like there's like social media psychology. It's like there's probably like degrees and stuff that you can get in that now because it's such a big thing. Yeah. And then it's like, you know, the more that you're lying and exaggerating about your life, the more you're putting that expectation on yourself to kind of
right.
It's like you're setting your own like unrealistic like boundaries kind of thing, like on top of the fact that, you know, like now that, you know, in this age, like a lot of people are struggling and people, you know, most people are living check to check, and you know, especially like the younger generation, you know what I mean? Like people don't have a lot of equity now, and it's just a week in, week out struggle. Everything's like now, you know, the pace of life is faster. So it's just like, it's adding more pressure on top of that. Like I see what happens, right? I see why people like get bummed out and why, and, you know, some people that'll happen with them with music. You know what I mean? Like they'll go in with too much of an expectation or whatever, and then if it you know, it's just sometimes it like comes like too much to handle, and you kind of realize like, yeah, like this isn't like what I'm doing isn't really, you know, this isn't true to myself, and you know, I'm not really been true to anyone else, and you know, like that's, you know, any field, any profession, like there's definitely a breaking point for some stuff. Like that's how it feels like sometimes, like every fucking Christmas, like myself and every other player in town, like there's this depression period of like complete like panic and insecurity because, you know, because the industry shuts down over Christmas and people aren't making records and doing gigs, and every single time, like no matter how fine you are and like how matter how good things are, like there's always this like at least 2 weeks to like a month-long phase of like, I'm like, is this the end of my career? Is this done? Like, after it's like, is no one? What if like no one ever calls me again? Like, is this like the end? Like, I'm done. Like, and then you always get out of it. It's like it'll, you know, you get through January or whatever, and like work starts picking up again, and it's kind of like happens. Like it's
So I understand that aspect of what you're saying.
I'm afraid to say that they're like, you know, just like. You don't want to tell people like, hey, like I just haven't been working this last like 2-3 weeks or whatever. Like,
but that's cool. But I don't have a problem. I don't like. Look, I don't expect people to. I would never go on like a social media. I'm more of a private guy anyway. I would never go on social media and say, oh, I'm having a bunch of shit to go through. But I also would never go on social media or anywhere else and say, wow, everything's so fucking wonderful. Like that. Like I just assume like no one gives a shit, and like everybody should do their own. You know, like. You got to get some coping skills, man. It's like, that's life. You know, it's a tough life, man. And you got to get coping skills to figure out how to handle it. And sitting there thinking, you know, wow, everything's, I don't know, man. I struggle with that. And some of it's because I'm older and, you know, we're like a different generation. And, you know, as a dad, I look and I see, man, a lot of parents are doing their kids a disservice because they're not keeping shit, you know, not keeping things real with them, and they're raising like emotional fucking quadriplegics that are not functioning in the world, you know. And I'm sure I sound like a really old guy saying that, but I just refuse to do that to my kids, man.
It's funny, like my generation and younger, it's like people are wanting to, like, people aren't wanting to have kids anymore. You know what I mean? Like, on top of the fact that just like financially, it's not like,
it's a lot of money.
it's like not viable. You know what I mean? It's like it's dangerous almost to like have a child like now in this day and age, because it's less and less kind of safety nets there. But like, I think, like, you know, like they've been doing studies and just saying that just like the younger generations like aren't even like sexually driven anymore, like as much as like humans were. Like there's just like less of this natural urge to like recreate. Like I think like a lot of that like might be sort of like biological in a kind of evolutionary sense, but like the same, it's like I've talked to people, like a lot of people like my age and other musicians and stuff, and people say like, man, I don't want to bring a kid into this world. Like, you know, like I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, and I don't think I want to like inflict it on a kid. You know, just from everything that I see, like I wouldn't know like what to do. I wouldn't know how to like help a child like be like not completely fucked. Like, how do you teach?
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, like,
it's a very tough thing.
How do you teach them about social media and stuff when it's ruining your own life yourself as a parent? Like,
yeah.
Like,
It's interesting. My older two sons, my oldest son is your age, and my younger son's 25, and we have a 17-year-old daughter. And the boys always tell me that they're so happy they grew up just 8 and 10 years apart from their sister, because they did not grow up with social media, and they actually know how to talk to people. you know, because like they can like look, you know, they can talk to you like you and I are talking. They can have that conversation, and whereas like they, from their perspective, the kids my daughter's age, and I've seen it, they can't as well. They have a hard time of it because most of their context has been on a screen, which is, you know, not a lot different than reality. But anyway, man, I appreciate you keeping shit real. That's what I'm all about.
No, that's great.
Hey, is there anything you want to promote or anything that you're working on that you want to let people know about? And like,
just I guess shout out to the companies that help me out. Like,
let's do it.
I don't have a lot of official sponsors or anything, but you know, Dunlop MXR have been really good to me. The guys at Revelator Guitars, A&F Drums, Wampa Pedals.
Brian's a good guy.
Throw a big shout out to Eastside Music Supply in Nashville. It's like the best guitar store for. If you've never been there, you should go
I've
there.
never been there.
It's amazing.
Where are they?
They're up on Gallatin Road over in East Nashville, kind of where I'm at. Like, small shop, and they do like consignments and trades and stuff, but like they specialize in really boutique, like just the stuff that they don't have in other guitar stores. Like,
very cool. Eastside, I'll have to check them out.
Eastside Music Supply, yeah, just awesome. You know, guys have been around in town for forever and been in the music scene, and they kind of created what their ideal version of like a guitar store would be for like a working musician, like, you know, repairs and amp mods and setups and just everything. Like, they're the guys. Like, big shout to them. I'm sure there's other people I'm forgetting, but you know who you are.
Awesome, man. Saul Philcox-Littlefield, I really appreciate your time, man. You're I'd love to have you back in a couple of years, because I think your session career is gonna like super explode. I interviewed Jerry McPherson a while back, and it was really interesting. And I actually have an interview coming up, I think, next week with Jeff King. So, those are pretty big, busy guys. So I'd like to think you'll be in that list, man, in a matter of time. All right, man.
Cool.
Listen.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. Everybody, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Again, thanks so much to Saul Philcox-Littlefield for spending his time with us. Look him up online. You're going to see a lot of pictures of him when he was a kid, because he came over here, and videos when he literally was a kid. And he's done really well in the 10 years he's been in town. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up and get notified about future episodes, along with some other cool new things we have for guitar players. Be nice. Go play a guitar and have some fun. Till next time, I'm out. Peace, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.